The Class Pranks and We Talk Vols on RKW. We are brewed by Scooter's Coffee on 104.5 The Zone and streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. Catching up with our good friend Austin Price of VolQuest's and On3 this morning. Austin, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Just walked off the practice field over here as spring practice has resumed following spring break.
I love it.
Nice.
So we get the first practice report of anyone out there in the world today. Austin, what did you see today? What did you take away from practice after today's session?
What did I take away from the 6 minutes that we get to sit?
That's right.
Yeah, right.
It was actually like 12 to 15 today. It was actually decent. I thought Nico threw it really, really well. I thought Jake Merklinger, was solid. It wasn't Georgia's best day on the practice field, but, this is a kid that also threw it well, in the first week or so of spring practice. So, that's to be expected. You're going to have highs and lows, and, it'll be on him to try to bounce back when Tennessee resumes practice on Thursday. And, defensively, Tim Banks is kind of roving around and, I think that's a different look for him because he's been able to push some of the safety stuff onto, the new veteran coach they hired with NFL ties. And, this is a Tennessee defense that, has got some nice young pieces. They're just trying to hit warp speed with them to get them ready.
Also, with Tennessee coming off of a weekend with a scrimmage, whose stock has risen the most? Is there one specific player or even just one group of players that stands out from what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I think, again, there's a lot of unknown, and you're going to hear me talk about that for the next 4 or 5 months.
Sure.
And some of the stuff, you're going to get, good reports back, but you're not going to truly know until you take to the field in September. I think, they like, some of the young talent at wide receiver. Those kids have done a nice job, showing some real progress through the first handful of practices. They like the young talent on the defensive line. And then I really like where they're at on the offensive line. They've got to figure out, is that going to be William Satterwhite or who? And, I think what they've got out of Wendell Moy and Sam Pendleton to this point has been really, really encouraging for the staff.
Austin Price with us this morning talking Vols, man. Austin, you mentioned the quarterbacks. You said Nico throwing as well, man. We're speaking of quarterbacks here on the NFL level just a little bit as it pertains to the prospect of a player that he is right now. When you look at guys in college, Austin, and specifically for a guy like Nico or somebody that can be compared to him, what does he have to do, considering how the offense can be judged by NFL talking heads, to make himself a high-caliber potential first-round draft pick, if you were to give your honest opinion on him?
Well, I think for Nico, you just got to continue to grow. You got to continue to progress. I think he's definitely added the leadership part to his repertoire, being a little more vocal out there. It's something that's really not in his nature. I think he knows as the quarterback, and the fact that the offense doesn't really have that like Dylan Sampson type player returning, he had to be that guy that stepped forward and was more vocal, and he's done a nice job of that. As far as on the field, just to continue to progress, continue to be a playmaker. And I don't think he lost you any games last year. I'm not sure he necessarily won you any games. He had a couple of great throws that helped you beat Alabama, so you could argue that he helped you win that game. This year, you'd like to see him be able to take over a game like a Cam Ward did a year ago, but that comes from maturity. You got to remember, he's just a redshirt freshman a year ago who had little to no reps the year before. So, he got better and better as the season went on, and you hope that this offseason he takes a giant leap, and the Nico we see come Syracuse and Atlanta is a different Nico in terms of being able to carry a team when Tennessee doesn't have their best stuff that day.
No doubt about it. On the in the backfield for the Vols, too, the running game has been a huge part of the success of this team. What do you expect from that group? Like you said, Dylan Sampson's out, and that's a big void as far as the leadership, but also the production. Who you see being the lead dog as it pertains to how they continue that, Austin?
I don't know if there will be a lead dog there. I don't think there'll be a Dylan Sampson type player that rushes for 12 or 1,300 yards. I think it'll be much more by committee. I think Deshaun Bishop continues to do really nice things. I think Peyton Lewis continues to progress and flash, and he's got a lot of talent. Star Thomas has got a lot of versatility to him, the Duke transfer, and then they really like what they've seen out of DeJuan Morris through the first handful of practices, the Oakland product. So this is a different type backfield. with just kind of like how Darrell Sims likes to use his backs compared to what Jerry Mack did, like the smaller rotation. So I don't think you necessarily see everybody, but at the same time, I think this year with the fact they don't have a set guy, I think there's more possibility that you see Darrell Sims expand his rotation compared to a year ago.
Austin Price, our good friend of VolQuest, joining us this morning on Arcade Dub. We're talking a little Vols. Before I transfer into the hoop side of things, I will say, because we focus a little bit on what you've seen offensively with this team during spring practice, what do you think sticks out early, Austin, on the defensive side?
You worried me, Kayla, with the way you phrased it. I thought you were transferring. And then hopping in the portal.
I'm not going to hop in yet.
You get an angle for more NIL money. Defensively, I think you like what you see out of Edmund Spillman. You like what you see out of some of the secondary, and I think Tennessee, they were not as deep as they were a year ago on the defensive line, but they're still really talented. And what you hope to see is growth from Caleb Herring, growth from Jordan Ross, growth from Tyree Weathersby, Tyree West, and those are the players I think that will be pivotal for Tennessee to take a step on the defensive line.
Okay, Austin, so with the hoops, and I know there's a lot of excited Vols fans here across Tennessee ready for this upcoming matchup, round 3 with Kentucky. How easy is it for your mind to, beat a team after you've gotten beat by them twice? Or is it something where it's another flip of the coin? I feel like at some point the tables got to turn, right?
I don't think it's in their head, especially with a veteran group. I think if anything, it just, makes them mad. So they're determined to flip the script. And so, Kentucky players giving them bulletin board material after their win the other night against Illinois. I think that's good. That drives a guy like Zakai Ziegler. He lives to be motivated, and it doesn't take much. You give that guy an inch, and he's going to take a mile. And saying we're going to win this game, we're going to beat them again, stuff like that. It definitely is going to light the fire. Not that he needed to have it lit, because I can promise you that guy burns 24/7. But I think for this team, they just have to clean up a few things. It's they've been right there on multiple occasions. They've not shot it great. Kentucky shot the lights out. If Kentucky shoots over 50% from three again, it's probably not going to be good for the Vols. But I think you got to figure out some type of matchup switch defensively that allows you to defend the three. Kentucky has 4 guards that can shoot it pretty well, and Tennessee's going to have to be, I think, potentially go with that smaller lineup that we've seen Tennessee close out games with, where you have Meshack and Gainey and Lanier and Zakai all on the floor at the same time. I think that's a potential to see come Friday night.
VolQuest's Austin Price with us. Austin, is there something Tennessee you feel like didn't do well defensively in those first matchups with Kentucky, or how much of this has just kind of been the luck or maybe unluck of the draw for Tennessee, considering the way the Cats have shot from 3 in those first 2 games?
Well, Kentucky does a good job of moving the basketball.
Right.
And Tennessee can sometimes be a little too aggressive, and then you overextend, and when Kentucky's able to move the ball so well, they can, flip the other side of the court, all of a sudden you've got a guy wide open. And so does Tennessee gamble less in this game and just try to play more solid defense, not, trying to go for steals and not trying to be too aggressive, be a little more reserved. I think, that's hard to do when it's kind of in your DNA to play a certain way. But, I do think that, there are some things they can do schematically that, could give them more success against the Kentucky team that, again, has been lights out through 2 games against Tennessee this year.
Austin, I think the Chris Lofton single-season threes record is one that many people thought was one of the more unbreakable records in Tennessee basketball history. Chaz Lanier does that over the weekend, and now Chris Lofton just has to settle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on that all-time leaderboard. Just put it into context for us, if you will, just how insane that is, Austin, because it's almost like we started focusing so much on Zakai Ziegler, maybe we haven't talked enough about just how historic of a season this has been for Chaz Lanier.
Oh, it's been fantastic, and to Chaz's credit, he's just rolled through it with a smile, through the ups, through the downs. Like, the kid's got a super attitude. And the sad part is that everybody, much like people compare Nico to Hendon and that ridiculous offense in 22, people compare Chaz Lanier to Dalton Connect because of what they saw last year. And those two guys are two different players. And, so I mean, like, I think unfairly early on, everybody's like, oh, he's not Dalton. Well, of course not. Dalton's a different type of player. But what Chaz has done is he's improved his craft. I mean, defensively, I think he is much more stable than he was early in the year. And then, from a shooting standpoint, the guy's just been fantastic. So, individual records, I think you'll continue to see fall from time to time with the right player. It's the career records, like Lawton's career three-point record won't be touched because people aren't going to stay. Like the Zakai Zieglers and Jemai Mashaks are dinosaurs. It's kind of like I told, Cooper Mays and Omari Thomas after the Ohio State game. Do you feel like a dinosaur in terms of like, you're the last of your generation, of your breed that's going to be around here 4 or 5 years? Like, everybody else is going to be quick to try to go and parlay it into 13 transfers because that's kind of this current model. Maybe it switches back eventually, but right now that's kind of the where you're at with it. So, I think the individual records from time to time with the right special player are touchable. I think some of these career marks across the landscape, national records, university records, SEC records, are much more safe the longer we go in this current model.
Also, when you look at this matchup, especially with Kentucky's point guard or shooting guard speaking up also, how have you seen Coach Barnes handle these situations? And speaking of like dinosaurs in the sense of the players he's got on this roster, like there's some guys that have been at Tennessee for a while, and Mashak and Zakai, and also just some seasoned guys, and Igor too. Does this faze them much at all? If you can walk us behind the curtain a little bit on how they perceive and take this going into Friday?
I don't think that they don't think. I mean, I know that it burns them that they got beat twice, but I don't think that they blink much at, it's Tennessee, Kentucky, and it's the first time they've ever met in the NCAA tournament and stuff like that. I mean, they are literally, I think, focused on Coach Barnes did a really nice job last week of just saying, let's win the Lexington Invitational. Now they're trying to win the Indianapolis Invitational. Yeah. And then kind of staying where you're at, being grounded, being where your feet are. And so I don't think they'll overhype this game too much, but at the same time, like, they know who they're playing. They know they beat them twice, and, they're out to try to flip the script this time around. So I think that having a veteran group, this absolutely helps them. If they were in a younger, inexperienced group, I think you worry more about, maybe it becoming a mental deal or whatever. I don't think Zakai and Jemai and some of those guys think twice about it.
He is Austin Price of VolQuest's on 3 Tuesday mornings here at 8:20 on the show, right off the practice field, talking football and some hoops as well. Thank you so much, Austin. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, Austin.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Austin.
you guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Austin Price. Bringing up an interesting point. If you're Rick Barnes, do you push the rivalry button, or do you focus more on winning the whole weekend?
It's got to be the weekend. That's the approach. Like, if you dive too deep and get too emotional and too high and vindictive, if I can be honest about it, like if they act like me, the way I view this game, and what he said, like you lose the purpose of being in March Madness. And that's why I was just asking the question, like, take us behind the curtain a little bit, Austin, and explain to us, like, some people get real personal with, like, their matchups. And then you win the one you want, and you lose the championship, or you don't advance the way you want to. So that's the reason I wanted to know, like, does it faze Zakai and Chaz and Mashak to hear that be said, knowing that you did lose 2 games and all eyes will be on this matchup on Friday?
Yeah, I think that you have to approach it with a little bit of both, because it's the next opponent, right? So no matter what, you have to be ready for this game and up for this game. And that's not going to take a lot because they know what they're getting in terms of Kentucky. They've faced them 2 times, like you said. But yeah, you can't play 100% into it just being that rival from the regular season. Like, this is the tournament. It's a tournament team that you're facing. We always talk about resetting the button once the tournament, approaches. You kind of have to do that too with this opponent, even though you've seen him before. So I think it's a happy medium approach by Rick Barnes, and that's why I feel so confident in Barnes, because he's been in these positions so many times. And you also almost might look at the other side with Pope. And I know that Pope is had experience, but Mark Pope, excuse me. But at the same time, this is a new team. This is his first year there. Like, at what point will the bridge finally break for them?
Because what you don't want is beat Kentucky and then you lose the next one. Because being in that situation before,
your emotions
nothing more you love than the team that beat you get immediately bumped.
Right. Yeah, I think the beauty of the veteran experience of the roster is Rick Barnes will know what buttons to press because he knows these guys really well. And plus, Sakai Ziegler's kind of another coach out there, honestly. Like, Rick will tell you that. So, not something I'm worried about. No, I'm not worried. I'm very confident that Tennessee wins on Friday. I feel really good about this game. I really do. Now that I've kind of taken the emotion out of it and broken down the matchup itself, I really don't think it's a bad matchup for Tennessee because Kentucky is getting a very different version of Tennessee's guards than they got the previous 2 times they played. I think Tennessee is better from the experience of going to Rupp and losing, that they saw a really bad form of Jordan Gainey, Sakai Ziegler, and Chaz Lanier. I mean, it took Chaz Lanier going 0 for 7 from 3 for Kentucky to win that game in Rupp, and it was still a Tennessee lead with about 4 minutes left.
Right.
He's not going to, I'll just tell you right now, Chaz Lanier is not going 0 of 7 from 3 again against Kentucky. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. 615-737-1045. If you were on hold earlier and had to drop off, we had Austin on, wanted to talk about Cam Ward, the Titans, the trade scenarios. We can do that. We will hit the other NFL headlines as well. The Titans have a linebacker, and they have one former player who has landed elsewhere. That's next.